Thanks for joining us today. You're listening to the International Moving Podcast, your guide to moving to another country, brought to you by SDC International Shipping, LA's finest. An international move is exciting. It's a time to start over, establish a new business, maybe reestablish family ties, or retire where your budget will do more for you. Or maybe just the weather is more to your liking. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you have any questions about your international move, please give us a call at 888-779-3962. That's 888-779-3962. Hey everyone, this is Jim for SDC International Shipping. Thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about moving from Silicon Valley in California to Canada. We're going to talk about what you need to know, go into some details that I think you'll find really helpful. Now the other day, just a little side note here, I was listening to a video in which the person was talking about how we're moving from more of a location-based society to a network-based society. For example, in the past, there were certain things that you could not accomplish successfully unless you uprooted and moved to, let's say, a big city. So for example, where I lived in New Jersey, if you want to hit it big in, let's say, theater, or you had a rock band, maybe you'd go to New York City. Or if you were an artist, definitely you'd want to relocate to New York City. Maybe if you were on the West Coast trying to do the same thing, you'd head for LA. If you wanted to hit it big on the country music scene, maybe you go to Nashville, Tennessee. In other words, location was very important. And the same is true for tech startups or anybody in the tech industry. Some of the biggest companies in the world, of course, got their start in Silicon Valley. However, times have changed, and what we've discovered is we're moving into more of a network society where location is no longer important because technology enables us to reach people from across the world, whether we're living in a densely populated city type of atmosphere or whether we're living in more of a rural outback type of situation where all we have is basically our internet connection and a laptop. The things that we could do today make it possible to get our message, our artwork, whatever it is that we're creating out there without having to uproot and move to a new location. So talking about Silicon Valley, the things that made it such an attractive place to go to for people in the tech world over the past 20 years, those pluses are no longer pluses, I guess you could say. From the recent collapse of the banks there to the high cost of living, a lot of startups are learning that they can basically create their company almost out of thin air from anywhere in the world. And we're seeing big companies now rise up in places that we never thought possible. And so, yes, Silicon Valley may have the reputation based on what happened in the past, but now that we're in a different time, a different era, people are gradually recognizing the fact that this location is no longer holds the magic, so to speak, that people once associated with it. So moving to a country, a new country, is a big step, whether you're going to do it for work, family, or adventure. And if you live in California, you probably already know that Canada is a popular destination with Californians for a variety of reasons, from its beautiful scenery to welcoming communities. People are a little bit different there. And if you're moving from or considering moving out of Silicon Valley, it's just too expensive. The opportunities are no longer there as they were in the past. To Canada, yes, there will be some challenges, and that's why we're going to talk about it in this podcast episode. We have to consider things like the immigration process, finding the right moving company, tips for adjusting to what life is like in Canada. And I'm also going to highlight, of course, why SDC International Shipping would be the best choice for a stress-free move from California to Canada, whether you're planning to move to Vancouver, Toronto, or another Canadian city. We're going to talk about the information and the resources that will help make your move successful. So let's talk about the immigration process. Before you can move to Canada from your location in Silicon Valley, and if you're not in Silicon Valley but you're in another location similar to it, this will apply too. You'll need to navigate the immigration process, and this process can be complex and time-consuming, so it's important to start your research early. The first step is to determine your eligibility for immigration to Canada. And this depends on factors such as your age, your education, your work experience, language abilities, and family ties to Canada. To help you get started, the Canadian government provides a variety of resources and tools for immigration applicants. And one useful resource is called the Come to Canada tool, which allows you to explore your immigration options based on your personal circumstances. And you can also find information on the different types of visas and permits they have available, as well as the application process and what type of documentation they're going to require. It's also important to note that the immigration process can take several months or even years, so it's best to start early and get prepared for that kind of a timeline. Now, you may want to consider working with an immigration lawyer or a consultant to help you navigate this process probably a little bit easier to ensure that you meet all of the requirements, but that's the starting point. Next, and let's just push this right up front, you need to find the right moving company. Once you've completed the immigration process, the next step is to find a reputable and reliable moving company to help you with your move out of Silicon Valley to Canada, because there's so many moving companies out there and it can be an overwhelming process choosing the right one. Now, here are some things and tips that you can think about to help you make your decision, help you make a better decision. Number one is look for moving companies that specialize in international moves, not just a general moving company, and especially for companies that have experience with moves to Canada. Check out the reviews, check out the ratings on sites like Yelp and also the Better Business Bureau. Next, you want to get multiple quotes. So contact several moving companies to get quotes for your move, and make sure you provide them with accurate, detailed information about the size of your move, your destination in Canada, and any special requirements you may have. For example, maybe you're moving a baby grand piano, or you have an antique pool table or something like that that may need special packing preparations taken into account. And then compare the services and the costs. Review each quote very carefully to see what services are included and what costs are involved, and look for any hidden fees or charges that may not be included in the initial quote. Above all, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions about the moving company's experience, their different types of insurance coverages, the timeline for your move, things like that, because a good moving company should be transparent and willing to answer all of your questions right up front. Choose the company you feel comfortable with, because moving to a new country can be stressful. So it's important to choose a moving company that you feel comfortable with and that you can trust. And consider factors such as the company's communication style, their responsiveness, and their professionalism. At SDC International Shipping, we do have years of experience helping Californians relocate internationally, including to Canada. And we offer a range of moving services to fit your needs and your specific budget. And that includes things like packing as well as unpacking, custom clearances and storage. We have a team of experts that will work with you every step of the way to ensure a stress-free and successful move. So contact us today and learn about how our services can help you with your move from Silicon Valley to Canada. Now, when it comes to moving, I believe that you do need to go with a company that does have years of experience and one that has customizable plans. Customer service, competitive pricing, fully licensed and insured, all of those things. At SDC International Shipping, we do tick all of those boxes. So I'm just letting you know that. Definitely contact us if you're planning this kind of move. Now, let's get back to Canada. All right. Before moving to Canada, it's important to consider the cost of living at your new destination, because Canada is generally considered to be a very affordable country to live in, but the cost of living can vary significantly depending on where you choose to live. Now, here are some factors to consider. Number one is housing. For example, the cost of housing can vary significantly just depending on which city you decide to live in. So make sure you get that kind of information right up front. Housing in Vancouver and housing in Toronto is generally more expensive than other Canadian cities, for example. Next, transportation. The cost of transportation can also vary depending on where you live. If you're in a larger city, you may be able to rely on public transportation, which can be a lot more affordable than, let's say, owning a car. However, if you live in a more rural area, then you're probably going to need a car or maybe even a truck, so that's an added expense. Things like food and groceries, the cost of food and groceries can also vary depending on where you live. In general, food in Canada is more expensive than in the United States, but there are ways to save money, such as shopping at local farmers markets, buying in bulk, just like we have here. Taxes, Canada does have higher taxes than the United States, but the tax system is also more generous with more social services available as well as some more benefits. So it's important to factor in everything when you're considering the cost of living, not just one or two things when you're planning your move from a place like a Silicon Valley to Canada. Now, you may just feel that everything is overpriced in a place like Silicon Valley, and maybe you have a point. Things like taxes, food, transportation, all of those things can be significantly higher. But don't just assume that because you're going to a place in Canada that maybe isn't a Vancouver or a Toronto, that it's going to be a huge difference. And don't assume that it will or won't be. In other words, do your homework. Find out for yourself how much some of these things cost. And maybe you itemize things, like you figure out how much the average two-person home pays for electricity or water, or just things like that. Next, prepare for the climate, because the climate in Canada is going to be significantly different depending on where you choose to live. Some areas may have mild temperatures for most of the year, while others have definitely long, cold winters with a heavy amount of snowfall. So if you're moving from a place like Silicon Valley to Canada, you want to be prepared for the climate and your new destination, which probably means you're going to have to buy a whole new wardrobe for yourself. New jackets, shirts, things of that nature that are more accustomed to those lower temperatures. So make sure you look into checking out the weather. Check out the weather patterns in the new city that you're heading to or the new area. And this will help you prepare for the transition by going from one type of climate to another. Like I said, buy the appropriate clothing. Make sure to buy the clothing for the climate in that new city. I suggest coats, boots, other type of cold weather gear. You prepare your home if you're going to move to a colder climate. And this may include making sure that things like weather stripping and insulation, all of those things are up to par, that your heating system, if you're buying something right away, is in good working order. Be prepared for snow. Most likely, wherever you move in Canada, there will be some snow. I say that because I live here in South Florida, and we don't get any snow at all. Matter of fact, I've been here for 25 years, and I think I have one winter coat left, one jacket, and that's about it. If a cold snap ever came here or the weather ever changed dramatically, I would have to buy all new, starting over again. And so, it would be the same thing for our home. Our home is just not equipped for cold weather. It's an older Florida home. So that's why when I say be prepared, be prepared. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Of course, if you live in a hot weather, subtropical climate like I do, most of the time you came here to get away from the cold weather. But there's plenty of things to enjoy in a colder weather climate. And, these are some of the things that may be attractive to you. Everybody's different, so it just depends on whatever it is that you like. Now, let's talk about connecting with community when you get there. Moving to a new country can be a little bit intimidating for some people, the thought of it, because you're going to be connecting with a new community, new people. You're going to have to make new friends. And if there's a local community there, then that can make the transition much smoother. In other words, certain places have more of a welcoming type of community with things to do and guides and things like that than other places do. So, for example, you may be going to a community where they have a lot of local events. So check out the local events calendar and attend to the events that interest you as you're kind of feeling out what it's going to be like there, what it would be like living there. Of course, most of us go and check out wherever it is we're thinking about moving. Sometimes we'll go on vacation there for a few weeks. We'll get a feel for the place. Other times we'll rent there for several months and really get a more of an in-depth type of insight into what that area is actually like. I know some people just make the leap and they don't have, they have some of the details in place. Believe it or not, there are people that are adventurous and do that. Most of them are younger. But of course, that's an option. Not something I would recommend, especially if you're going from a place like Silicon Valley to Canada. But there are people that do that. And I do recommend you join some local groups or organizations. And this will be a great way for you to meet people probably a little faster and be able to connect with others that have similar interests. So, I mean, there's everything that you can imagine. There's volunteer organizations. There are amateur sports teams if you like to get involved in that kind of thing. There's book clubs. There's all different kinds of things that happen, depending on the community that you're going to. Also remember, social media like Facebook and Twitter, it can be another way to connect with people in that community that you're thinking about going to. You can connect with others there, get to know them online, and then when you meet them, it's almost like you already know them because you've been communicating on whatever social platform you're connected with. So I know Facebook, for example, has plenty of groups and organizations where you can figure out what the area is like, what places to go to, what places to eat, the best places to do your shopping, and all of that. You can learn all of that online also if you'd rather do it that way, using the internet instead of just doing everything face to face. But overall, when you're connecting with the community, whether you're doing it online to begin with or whether you're making the trip and renting and going to some of the local places, it's just a much easier, much smoother way to make that transition from leaving the place that you've been familiar with and making your home in a new location. So summing it up, moving from Silicon Valley to Canada can be a challenging experience, but with the right preparation, with the right mindset, it can be an exciting opportunity for a new chapter in your life. And so today I wanted to just cover these considerations, things to take into account when you're thinking about making an international move. Things like the immigration process, finding the right moving company, calculating the cost of living, being prepared for the climate, and being connected to a community of people. These are all things that you want to carefully plan out. And finally, let me just say at SDC International Shipping, yes, we have years of experience helping Californians relocate internationally, and we're committed to making your move as stress-free as possible. We have a team of experts that will stay with you through the entire process. They will be there to answer the phone and answer whatever questions or concerns you may have. They'll guide you through the entire moving process and provide you with the support that you need to make your transition to Canada a success. So whether you're moving for work, family, or adventure, we're here to help. So go ahead and contact us today and find about the different services that we offer that can help you with your move from Silicon Valley or wherever you are to Canada. All right, I think that's about a wrap. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next podcast episode. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for listening. Whether you're relocating within the country or moving to the other side of the world, we're here to help from start to finish. Connect with us today at 888-779-3962. That's 888-779-3962.